My number two is Mildred Pierce from 1945, starring Joan Crawford, Jack Carson, and Blythe, directed by Michael Curtiz. Quick logline: a hardworking mother inches towards disaster as she divorces her husband and starts a successful restaurant business to support their spoiled daughter. So I put this movie on my list because, like you were saying a little bit, to me, LA is also a big town of just hustling.
For
This is a
sure.
place where people, like we've been saying, are from everywhere. Most people are not born with a silver spoon. Most people didn't have their parents in the movie business or had made it big. So you got to figure stuff out. And I think this movie does a really good job of showing that. But it's very specific to LA in terms of the kinds of things and people Joan Crawford's character, Mildred, has to kind of deal with. So, on one hand, she's sort of speaking to her own passions for pie making and cooking, but also just necessity because she has to make things work because she has two kids and
Right.
is divorced. So it's sort of amazing to watch, especially a movie from that time, a single mother really kind of take matters in her own hands, make this thing work. Deal with all the men in her life, and establish a successful restaurant business. But on the other hand, this movie also shines such a great light on the people who are image conscious, the people who always want more, the people who care about where do you live, what car do you drive, and that's her daughter, and that's
Oh yeah.
Monty Barragan, the guy who shows up, who's kind of two timing with the mother and the daughter, which is gross. But that's also kind of life. And I think this movie really shows the conflict between both these people. And even though Mildred has built this whole successful empire, this is the seductive quality of LA, because there's always this kind of shining star in front of you that it could be more, it could be better.
Hmm.
You, even though you've made it, you don't know that you've made it, and you'll throw it all away because you're trying to please somebody, in this case her daughter. So it's such a brilliant movie. On the face of it, it could just be a stereotypical noir movie, and you could totally just lay back and enjoy that. But I think this movie has lots of deep themes, and for me, I think it's of personal relevance because I actually lived in Glendale,
Mm.
and I watched this movie when I lived in Glendale, and it sort of has this thing, right? That, oh, Vita, the daughter, is like, yeah, I hate Glendale. I would never want to live over here. Who lives here? And it's always about how do you leave Glendale for a better life. And that's another very LA specific thing, that the neighborhood or city that you live in or micro city that you live in kind of seems to define who you are. And
Definitely.
even though you're the exact same person, suddenly if you were living on the west side, apparently you're better.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
I did move to the west side, and I was perceived to be better. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, it's all about the first three letters of your phone number, like, or not
Right.
letters, numbers. If you get that coveted 310 phone number, that's
Oh
what
gosh.
that makes all the difference.
Yep. So yeah, brilliant movie, beautifully shot. Obviously, Michael Curtiz, great performances. Joan Crawford's only Oscar, famously accepted from her bed, which I just love. And again, Joan, she's kind of become this caricature. Another reason why I don't like Ryan Murphy, because that's how he presented her in his show. But what a great star, what a great performance, what a great career, spanning from silent movies to being who she became. So I don't know, this movie hit me right at the time when I was getting into the filmography of these actresses from the 30s and 40s,
mm,
her, Betty Davis, Barbara Stanwyck, noir. So it's just a great compilation of all of that for me. So I could have put any number of LA noir movies, and we might go over some of them in our what didn't make the list. But to me, it all starts here. And the last thing I'll say is that if anybody's curious about this movie or they like this movie, I would highly encourage you to watch Todd Haynes's miniseries on HBO of the same name, starring Kate Winslet, where they really go deep into what happened. And because this is a movie, so they
right.
didn't cover every aspect of the famous book, but that series, I watched the whole thing twice, and it's absolutely amazing. So that's Mildred Pierce, number two.
Yeah, I am glad you put this on the list. I have been wanting to watch this movie for like 20 years and just
Oh
never
wow.
got around to it. And it just was as good as I was expecting it to be, if not better. Just a fantastic noir film, performances up and down, perfect. Interesting you talk about Joan Crawford too. Just now just thinking, it wasn't necessarily as extreme, but a similar kind of parallel to the Bela Lugosi story too, in
Yeah.
terms of being kind of washed up, trying to come back as an older woman in some horror films at the end, and then was basically a recluse and passed away. But a fantastic actress. So yeah, like for me, I think I'm glad we're putting a film noir film on here. I none of my films that I have on my list
Yeah.
are film noirs, and I just associate that genre so much with Los Angeles.
Totally.
So many of the best film noirs are all set in LA, and I picture LA in the 40s and 50s just looking like film noir.
Basically,
Like,
exactly.
very, there's no lights back then, I guess.
Yeah,
in
when
the
she's on the
city.
pier in the beginning of the movie, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is probably how it looked like.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so you definitely definitely true about the where you're from in LA, even like the city defining you. It's funny too. After this, I'm like, oh, I wonder if like that house is still there. And I found like a YouTube video of where you can go to the house that they shot this film at. And
Yeah.
it looks exactly the same, just the palm tree's taller. So it's kind of cool. See that. Maybe I'll go up to Glendale and check that out in person. But yeah, I thought the film was great. Especially like the gender dynamics are really interesting too. Where I think Mildred is trying to, or she successfully like uses men throughout the film to gain her independence from them,
Mhm.
and uses money as well. Like to her, money represents freedom and independence, versus her daughter, which I think just views it as success in and of itself. Oh, if I have money, then that's all that I want, just money, 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 and that's what's really driving her, even to the cost of everyone around her. And for some reason, Mildred. I mean, I guess not for some reason. She's a mother, so she has to, once feels like she needs to care for her child. But definitely, like the daughter takes advantage of everyone in her life to try to get ahead, especially like her mom. But yeah, just a great, especially at the time, to have a film with such a rich female character and character
Amazing.
arc. It's just great to see this. So very glad you, as a sense, like gave me an excuse to sit down and watch Mildred Pierce. I just loved it.
I'm glad you did. And yeah, I think this is why there's a bit of a specific LA thing here. I mean, I guess, a bratty teenager who wants more money and wants more things can happen anywhere. But
Right.
I don't know if it will land on Mildred the way it does in this movie had it not been set in LA, because this is not just Vida. This is everybody around her too.
Right.
And it's sort of heightened, and I love that we don't see that. We just see it all channeled through Vida.
Mhm.
But it's probably happening across the board where people just want more and more. Like this movie could literally be made now where the daughter is some influencer.
Oh, for sure.
And wants to join some, hotshot Venice TikTok house,
Mhm.
and is, and we know how that story goes. So
Right.
I kind of feel like this movie is timeless in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point about being in LA, because entertainment and trying to make it big and be a star, quote unquote, right, is so
Yep.
much of a part of some people who are here in this city. And I think because her daughter is trying to get money, but she wants to be a famous singer, and like that is something that is unique to this city too. That entertainment slice of it, even though we barely see it, it's sort of, because the movie is so much about Mildred that we don't really see Vida trying to go off necessarily and like do auditions, and that would have turned into a different movie, I think.
Right.
And maybe the book expands on that. I've not.
And
read,
the TV
read the
show
book.
does that.
Right,
which is
right,
why
'cause
I highly recommend it. But yeah, you do hear her sing in the movie on the
Mhm.
radio, which I remember the first time I watched the movie, I was like, oh, she's actually good, because you're so caught up in just her chase for fame and success that I was sort of like, I don't even know if you're good for anything, but she
Right.
is actually good, which actually makes it doubly heartbreaking that
Mhm.
you're actually good at this. So you don't have to be so mean and awful.
Right.
Right. You can earn this. You got gifted. So anyway.
Yeah. Great film for sure. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.